Hi, and welcome to the Peter Principles, the only place where I get to give my musical opinions and you get to listen. It's a win-win. Today on 10 Questions with the Musical Mind, we're joined by young superstar Griffin Tucker, who at the age of 16 has already won numerous awards, made national television appearances, and has already recorded his debut album entitled Believe It. So let's join Griffin now. Well, we've been playing email tag a little bit back and forth, so it's good to finally make your acquaintance in person, sort of. Yeah. Well, of course, a lot of people know who you are already, and I've just got some questions. A lot of my focus goes on the creative process, like, how artists such as yourself, just do what you do, what inspires you, how you go about doing it. One of the earliest, or not the earliest, one of the earliest videos of you playing a Beatles song where you're playing all the instruments and all that, you were a little kid. So my question is, like, when did you first start playing any instrument, and which one was the first?
I first started with drums.
Okay.
I started playing drums when I was 5. I got my first drum set when I was 6, and then I went to piano when I think I was 6. And then I went to guitar when I was 8, bass when I was 9. And I just kept going with like ukulele, mandolin, and all that kind of stuff.
I gotcha. So once you had guitar down, bass just sort of evolution, like, okay, I'll just might as well pick this up too, that kind of thing.
With learning drums and piano first, I got the rhythm first,
right?
And then I got all the notes and how they're all like in relation to each other,
right?
Then once I kind of got like fretting on the guitar, then I could just kind of take that to anything else.
Right. And a lot of people say, piano is a good instrument to learn first as far as the harmonic instruments, because it gives you sort of a map of what goes together and that kind of thing. But I'm sure you found, do some keys you find work better on piano than guitar?
Yeah.
Writing an E is easier on guitar than, that kind of thing. But that's interesting. But yeah, that's pretty young to be, have facilities on all those instruments. It's pretty incredible. Are your parents musicians?
My dad plays a little bit of guitar.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of dabbles around in drums, and he also sings. My mom plays air guitar, and she sings. But I'm the main musician of the family.
Right. Well, that's probably an understatement. But where did they expose you to a lot of music as a kid? If you picked up at 5, started playing drums, even if they were exposing you to a lot of music, do you have active memories of what you were listening to that old?
I think I know when I was really, really young. When I was, I think it was like only a few months old, I got this terrible ear. I think it was a respiratory infection called RSV. And so there was all the stuff in my throat that I couldn't cough out. So I was in the hospital for a lot of the first months of my life.
Wow.
So my mom and I think it was just my mom bought me some Baby Einstein DVDs with all this classical music on it.
Okay.
So I just kind of grown up listening to that and listening to all these different sounds and how all these kind of pitches are in relationship to each other. And then once I was about 3, I was listening to the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably Kiss and Queen, Kiss and Led Zeppelin. But yeah, mainly my parents kind of introduced me to that.
Well, that's funny because that's the same things I was listening to as a kid. My father's record collection was the Beatles first, then Kiss and Queen, Zeppelin, but I'm a good bit older than you. I'm so it's the same things I was listening to in the '70s. But so speaking of that older music, you jump in the car, going out with some buddies, some friends, and it's just people your age going out for a while. What do you put in? Like, what are you putting in the CD player or loading up on Bluetooth?
I love music, and people usually think that I listen to the radio. But I have like this little iPod in my car. Mm-hmm. And of course I'm a music nerd, so I have like all of these like different versions of each song and like different live versions and studio versions of each song.
Sure.
So I have like at least like 1,000 songs on my iPod. So it's basically a radio.
Right.
So whenever my friends get in their car, they know that they're probably going to be listening to like classic rock and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, and the regular radio is terrible anyway. They've been playing, the same songs for 40 years, the same songs. It's awful. But I mean, if you told me in 1986 that in 2018 they'd still be playing Hotel California every hour, I wouldn't believe you. But it's ridiculous. But I do think, going back to your early music, I think it does play a big part, because when I was a little kid, I was listening to my dad's Beatles albums, and what I really liked was not as much the early Beatles stuff, like the I Want to Hold Your Hand and Help. I was more into the Magical Mystery Tour and, Rubber Soul, Revolver, some of the spaced out stuff and the real progressive stuff. And I ended up as a teenager being very much into Rush and Yes and the real, lengthy compositions and stuff. And I really think that probably had an impact on me. It's just like more complex music, which I like simple pop songs too. It's just, I like everything. I mean,
right.
But yeah, I do think it has an effect on you, and also it's had an effect on you. So about your music, I know you can obviously play all the parts yourself. When you're getting with other musicians, like you've got a group now that you're playing with, have you written any songs with them yet? Are they performing stuff you already wrote for your last album, or?
Up to this point, I've mainly just been writing by myself and writing all the instruments and writing like melodies and such. But I'm hoping, like in the very near future, to start writing with them.
That's what I find curious is when you're with them, do you say, okay, here's the bass line I want you to play? I mean, obviously you can give the drummer the beat, but are you saying like, I want you to do a tom fill here, or are you kind of saying, here's the basic outline of it, and they add in their own?
Well, when it comes to writing the music, I know what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I just do it, and then once I make a song, then I give it to, like, say, the drummer, and I'll just let him listen to it, like, maybe for a week, and then he'll come back, and if I like what he's doing, of course, Larry, my drummer now, he's amazing. So the way he does stuff it's not exactly like how I do it, but it's different, but it's also cool.
Sure.
So if there's like one part that I really want to do, like one certain fill, then I'll show him. But mostly I'll just give them the song, they do their arrangement, and that's what you hear live.
And I think that's a lot of the beauty of it is, even if you know exactly what you want, when somebody's following your blueprint, but they might do something that you would never think of, even if it's something simple or even just a different nuance, it adds something. And sometimes it's worse, but sometimes you're like, hey, that's cool, I like that. And just even a different slight vibrato on a bass part or a different slide that you wouldn't have added to, and it adds something to the song that, in one dimensional, like one person's project can be outstanding. I mean, there's guys like Tom Schultz in Boston that did everything.
Right.
And then sometimes it can get, a little bit too tunnel vision, and sometimes it's fantastic. But, I think sometimes having the other musicians collaborate a little bit helps. But it's an interesting process because it can go either way. With all your instruments, do you have a favorite of each type? Like, do you have a favorite guitar player, a favorite bassist, a favorite drummer, pianist, or favorite musicians, like a list of 3 or 4 that you really like?
Right. This is a tough question because I love a lot of bands.
Sure.
I guess I'll just kind of go down the list. Favorite guitarist? If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Brian May.
Yeah.
Because he can play very like calculated. He knows what he's gonna play before he even goes on stage. But there's also some songs where he just kind of improvs and does whatever he wants to do, and it also sounds just amazing.
Right.
And he built his own analog delay machines for his guitar. He built his own guitar.
Right. It was out of a mantle from a fireplace, I think. Is that right?
You're breaking up a little. Can you say that one more time?
A little bit. I think he built it with his father out of like a mantelpiece from a fireplace, is what I read years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
He built. I think he built it in the mid '60s.
Mm-hmm.
And his father was never even into him being a musician, but he built a guitar with him. So
yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty amazing.
And then favorite drummer. I'll always love Ringo because he was my first inspiration for learning how to play drums. But I mean, you can't go wrong with John Bonham.
Sure,
he's a beast. But when you really like take a look at what he's playing, it's so technical. It can almost it's the technique of like a jazz drummer,
right?
And it's so detailed, but at the same time, it's just so
visceral.
Yeah,
yeah. You almost don't think of it. And I'm not a drummer, so for many years I didn't really think about how technical his stuff was because I'm just watching him just bash the skins. He's such a physical player, but yeah, if you listen to it, he had some intricate stuff he was doing. It just, I just didn't always occur to me at first when I was younger because, like I say, I don't play drums, so some of that goes over my head. But yeah,
right.
What about anybody else?
Favorite bassist? I thought about this for a long time. It's probably a tie between Paul McCartney and John Paul Jones. Because Paul McCartney, he's made so many melodic bass lines that they're basically songs in themselves.
Right.
Because I'm a Beatles nerd and I listen to like certain isolated tracks, and I just listen to like sometimes just the bass, and they're just songs in themselves. They're just so melodic.
Yeah.
But John Paul Jones, especially with Jimmy Page is kind of soloing and doing his whole thing, JPJ is just it's so easy for him to just kind of fill out the rest of the space on the bottom, while still making it melodic and still kind of holding down the groove.
Well, he was really good at making melodic lines that weren't too busy. So he was holding down the pocket, but at the same time kind of going around a little bit. Yeah, you're right. And with him and his keyboards, he was actually a way bigger part of Led Zeppelin than I think gets credit for. Yeah,
definitely.
Any piano players you admire a lot?
Ooh, I'd probably say I'm really into Queen right now, actually, even though I'm also into Led Zeppelin. But Freddie Mercury was a phenomenal piano player. If you listen to his stuff on like Love of My Life, and even stuff that he does on like Bohemian Rhapsody, it's so intricate, and there's so many things going on. And especially when I think of like how they recorded stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, it was just like bass, piano, and drums when they first started recording it. So there were all those pauses, and he knew what he was doing, and there were so many different things that he would do with the piano. And it was just so intricate, and so it's just so pleasing to the ear, and I love that.
Yeah, and it's so impressive because, I mean, as you know, in those days they're cutting 2-inch tape and splicing tape together to edit all those parts together, and they had probably 4 tracks, not later on in analog so you had 24 and 48 tracks, and now in Pro Tools you have as many as you want, but they had not much to work with, and they're just taping it together. It's just amazing that they got that much stuff in one song. That's an art in itself. It's just editing all that and getting it to sound good. As far as all the instruments you play, do you have one you call your main instrument, or one you think you're better at than the others?
My main one, I think it's safe to say that it's probably guitar, because that's usually what I play when I play shows.
Sure.
But when it comes to like what I'm most proficient at, I think it's probably a tie between guitar and drums.
Yeah.
I've been playing drums. That was my first instrument. I've been playing it for. I keep thinking about this. I've been playing drums for over 10 years. Um, but I've been working really hard at trying to like master each instrument. But I really think that I've gotten far with both drums and guitar.
That's cool. Speaking of that, you've got. I'm not familiar with that, or at least by sight, the brand of guitar you play. You've got that blue one, and you've got that wood grain one that I've seen you play in different performances. What model guitar is that?
The blue one is it's a I don't know exactly what the color. I don't know what they call the color, but it's a Music Man Armada.
Oh, it's Music Man. Okay.
Yeah. I love that guitar. I'm actually sponsored by them, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, they make fantastic instruments.
Yes. And then I have the wood grain one is a Gibson Les Paul. I think from what the seller told me, and from what like the serial number says in the back, it was made for like a custom shop competition.
Mm-hmm.
In 2010, and the person who made the best guitar could keep theirs, and apparently the person who made that guitar, or who made like the specs and all that, they were kind of running short on money, so they sold it off.
Oh.
Which of course I think is a terrible decision.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting that one, and it sounds amazing, of course.
Now you've got another Armada too, don't you? Because you've got like a darker wood grain, like the blue one, like in your video for some kind of love song, I think.
Yeah. When I did some kind of love song, we were in LA, so we were right next to like their offices and where they make all their guitars, and, like the artist relations. So I went to their shop, and they let me rent like another Armada.
Oh, okay.
So I use that for the music video, but I don't personally own that one.
Gotcha. That's the one I was thinking about when I asked. Okay.
Yeah. And the other one that I love playing a lot is my RS Custom. It was built out of Brian May. I call it my Golden Girl. It was in my first original video, Girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I play it for a lot of my gigs. And I love the Trisonic pickups. I'm looking over here because it's right in front of me.
Yeah.
I love the Trisonic pickups, and you can like set certain pickups out of phase with each other, so like different frequencies are kind of either they stand out more or they're kind of buried a little. So you can either make it scream or it can be like a little like bluesier.
Yeah.
So I love that too.
I used to joke that my Les Paul had two sounds, Off and Black Sabbath, but that was probably more my ability than anything else. Are there any musicians out there that you want to work with someday? Like if you had just had a dream, like, oh, I'd love to make an album with this guy or this girl.
I mean, I think it'll always be Paul McCartney.
Sure.
He's been a hit making machine for over 50 years.
Yeah.
And he plays pretty much every instrument known to man.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be really fun to just make an album, just kind of hang out in the studio and make songs with him.
Just the stories he could tell.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah.
I can't even imagine. He's like literally the walking history book as far as rock history. Yes. I mean, he's everything. Yeah, hard to go wrong with that choice.
Right.
Now, when you were learning songs, do you learn by ear, or do you use things like YouTube to help you pick up something? Like if a song's really complex or something, do you go to YouTube to help you, tutorials to see how to play it, or do you do it solely by ear?
When I was first starting out, I had like videos because I started off with Beatles. So my parents got me like videos of like their first U.S. visit, like on the Ed Sullivan Show and all that.
Right.
And I just watch Ringo and what he does. But also I would do it the old-fashioned way and go to stores or guitar stores and get like the whole like tab books for different bands and all that. And I learned it like that. I'm trying to remember. I think the first song I ever learned like on guitar, I know it was Cold Gin by Kiss.
Yeah.
it's so simple, but it's a great riff.
Right.
And the first solo I think I ever learned, I think was "You Shook Me All Night Long" by AC/DC.
Yeah.
And of course, Angus he's a solo making machine.
Right.
But yeah, I mostly learned by ear. But when I did have to like go to something else because I couldn't just hear it, I'd probably go to videos or I'd look at tab books and all that.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because obviously there was no internet when I was your age. So, I was in high school in the 80s and, playing guitar. I did get the tab book sometimes, the tablature. And, I wasn't really good at learning by ear. Sometimes, I could listen to a song and be like, oh, that's D, A, and E. But, more often than not, I couldn't, especially like the solos and stuff I couldn't figure out. But there was a danger back then of you buying a tablature book. And I remember buying some and getting to parts, be like, this is totally wrong. Like, this is just not right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's correct, but I know this ain't it. But so then you spent money on a book. But it would have been nice because nowadays you see people, that can play really complex pieces at young ages, and you didn't see that as much when I was younger. But I'm sure it happened. But I don't know. Talk about your next album or your next batch of music you have planned. Do you have any ways that you want to make it different from your last album? Like, do you want ways you want to grow or expand or?
With this next album, I'm hoping to make it a little more blues oriented.
Okay.
Because this last one was it was very influenced by classic rock.
Sure.
But I want to try and make this one a little more, just kind of like old school, kind of blues, almost kind of Led Zeppelin-y.
Yeah.
Kind of early Led Zeppelin. But yeah, I'm working on a few songs right now. And I think I'm actually going to plan on working on some like later this week.
Cool.
So I've been working on it for a little while, and now that summer's here, I have a lot more time to do that.
Right. That's awesome. And I know you did some overdubs on other stuff, like that's another thing I was asking about guitar. Like, say some kind of love song. In your guitar solo, you've got a lower line going, and then the higher part of your guitar solo, it's a melodic solo. Are you using a chorus on that, or are you actually going and doubling your guitar part for that higher part?
I actually did like every single track.
Okay.
And I now that I'm thinking back on it, I'm slowly realizing that I never see any of these connections like before I release these songs. But with some kind of love song with the solo, I guess it's kind of inspired by the way that Brian May did his version of "God Save the Queen."
Yeah.
He'd have like the low line kind of carrying out like the root notes, and then you'd have like the solo on top of it with like maybe 2 or 3 different harmonies with it. So I guess it's kind of the direction that I was going with that. But I did every track by itself.
Gotcha. And that's but yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of interesting how you can talk about it much later and be like, wait, I guess maybe I'll pick that up from here. And it is kind of interesting, but I always like the multi-track. As a matter of fact, I like live albums, but I've always been kind of more of a studio album guy because I like personally just many layers, overdubs, and even if it's technically impossible to play in a live setting, I like that the different layers and stuff. But live albums are good too. It just depends on the energy, I guess.
Right.
But so when do you think you'll have the next album? What can we look forward to? Maybe a few months from now, a year from now? I mean, what are your plans?
With this album, I'm not really sure about like the planning of when it's going to be out because I'm really only in the first few stages of writing all the songs. But I know that I definitely, as far as I know, now this might not come to fruition.
I don't think this is a legally binding answer.
Okay. But I think I'm gonna try and write another Christmas song because up to now I've just been covering Christmas songs. But I'm hoping to actually write one for this year. I'm hoping to have that out, but of course, that might not happen. So
that's a great idea. You know, there's people who were. I'm thinking of one band, a band called the Waitresses, and they had basically one hit. And then they recorded a Christmas song, and they've been playing that Christmas song every December in every restaurant and mall across the country for 30 years. So they're probably still getting royalty checks well after their career was over, you know. And that's not dismissive of that group. I'm just saying that if you get a Christmas song that's, you know, the thing about Christmas songs that annoys me is not the music's bad. It's just, it's 100 remakes of 12 songs.
Right.
So if you can add something to the canon and it gets popular, that's a great idea. Yeah. Pretty neat.
Well, all right.
Well, it's been great talking to you, man. And you know, we'll have to get back in touch and when you get some more plans going, because you're an inspiration. I love the stuff you're doing, and you know, you got a great sound. Your voice, you know, you sound like you're 36, not 16, and that's a good thing. I'm just saying, you got a good power behind your voice, and just real impressive. So I'll be watching for sure and keeping up things. And it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you, and we'll stay in touch.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Griffin. Appreciate it, man. Thanks. Bye.
See ya.